Dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to one of Naseej Academy webinar series that aims to share knowledge, ideas, and reflections on topics of interest, new trends, and rapid technology. In fields of learning, libraries, and cultural institutions, knowledge management, and digital transformation. Our webinar today is a forward-looking one with the title Redesigning Academic Integrity Through AI-Informed Pedagogy. As we know, academic integrity has long been framed as a problem of control, rules to enforce, violation to detect, and technologies to police misconduct. But the rapid emergence of generative AI challenges us to ask a more fundamental question. What if academic integrity is not something we enforce, but something we design for? Rather than positioning AI as a threat to learning, this webinar invites all of us to reimagine integrity as a pedagogical outcome, one that is cultivated through international curriculum design, transparent policies, and assessment that genuinely matter to students and lecturers for the future. Tonight, we will explore a shift from normal purpose of the AI to a very in-deep purpose that will help us to take the learning and education to another level. Also, we will focus on the future trend of how we can use this technology, mainly generative AI, to not control, but at least to deal with the integrity as ultimate goal for all the academia. To talk about this topic, we are honored to have with us Dr. Michelle Kassorla. She has a Ph.D. and she's an associate professor at Georgia State University, Plenary College. She has more than 30 years of experience teaching, writing, and emerging as a thought leader in AI in higher education. Michelle is a keynoted Teaching and Learning with AI conference at the University of Central Florida in May 2025. She was a plenary speaker for Teaching Professor Conference at AI Higher Education in December 2025. Also, she served on AI expert panel in EDUCAUSE and lead their AI literacy committee for higher education. She is a recipient of Center of Excellence in Teaching, Learning, and Online Education Fellowship and was recently featured in Grammarly 2025-2026 Teaching with AI Trends, Transition, and Transformation. She published a book with the title Teaching with GAI in Mind and AI Literacy in Teaching and Learning. This publication makes us feel really interesting to listen to something beyond our expectation, something I think will be the new wave of the future for using AI for integrity. With me will be, as a moderator, Mr. Ralph. And Mr. Ralph, I would like to introduce him in one line and leave the virtual stage to him to introduce him more in deep and also give some reflection on the topic of the webinar and the owner speaker. Please, Mr. Ralph, the Business Development Manager at Career-Readiness. So this will be a good point to stop and give you the virtual stage to introduce our owner guest as well. Please, Ralph.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdullah. Thank you very much for your introduction. So good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Ralph Gerlan. I'm the Business Development Manager for Compilation, Plagiarism, and AI Detection in the MENA region. So first and foremost, of course, I would like to thank our partner, Naseej Academy, for giving us this opportunity to have this important discussion. And also, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. I think this is really important, and we are honored to have Dr. Michelle Kassorla today with us as an expert, because the reality is simple nowadays. We cannot stop AI, and we shouldn't try to stop it. AI is already in the classrooms all over the world. We cannot be like China, where they will turn off AI. Okay? The real challenge now
I
for
like
you,
this. I like this note.
the real challenge for educators like yourselves, of course, isn't whether, students are using AI. It's like understanding how they are using it. If they're using it for, for good or to cheat. And that's what Dr. Michelle will help us with. And of course, to learn whether AI is really supporting their learning or is it replacing it. So today's session with Dr. Michelle will explore how we shift from teaching against AI to teaching with AI, and how we can redesign assessments to maintain academic integrity, of course, in this AI age. So with that, I leave the mic to Dr. Michelle. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Rob. He's Michelle. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. So today I'm going to talk about how we redesign our pedagogy for a world with AI. So some of the things that we have to think about when we're doing this is, first of all, everyone is so concerned with cheating that they're forgetting to teach. So we need to reclaim teaching. So the first thing we need to do is we need to move from policing to purpose. We need to bring transparency here. We need to have career readiness. We need to redefine our assumptions about learning. We need to have some process over product. And of course, we need to have humans in the loop. So this is how we start redesigning this idea. So let's move from policing to purpose first. So we cannot stop AI. As Mr. Ralph said, there is no way to stop it. Even if we wanted to stop it, it would still creep in. Our students are using it. They're finding it intriguing. We're using it, for goodness sakes. And it is in everything. Even if you wanted to get rid of it, it's still in your Google search. It's still in your Microsoft. It has infiltrated every part of everything we do. And so saying no AI is not really an option these days, because AI is it's part of every single thing we do. So what I always say is, you need to take off the policeman's cap, you need to put down your whistle, and you need to just teach. So how can we teach for an age of AI? So good teaching, first of all, requires trust. And no one can be their best when they have a policeman looking over their shoulder. So if they're thinking that you're thinking they're just cheating, then you're not going to get the best type of writing from your students. You're not going to get the best type of academic work from your students, because they are too worried about you worrying about their cheating. So it becomes this crazy thing where everyone's so worried about it that students start to do really dumb stuff. Like, for example, I have some honors students in my classes who have admitted to me that they dumbed down their work because they didn't want to be accused of using AI. That's insane. I should have the best students giving me their best work, not policing themselves because I'm worried about policing them. So instead, we need to invite AI into our classrooms. We need to move from teaching against AI to teaching with AI. And learning how to do that is really a pedagogical, it's a pedagogical problem. We need to look at the theory of what we're teaching and how we're teaching it, and start to look at what it means to teach our topics and why it's important to teach them in a certain way. So the way that we define critical thinking skills comes really from what we call Bloom's taxonomy. So Bloom's taxonomy has become so prevalent in everything that we teach that we don't even consider it. Bloom's taxonomy teaches teachers that in order to get to this top level of create, which is combining all these parts into a new whole, you first have to get all of these other things in line. So the student has to know how to recognize and recall facts, then they have to understand what the facts mean, and then they have to break down, they have to apply the facts, rules, concepts, and ideas. And after they get that down, then they can break down information into component parts and analyze them. Then they can start to judge whether that information or those ideas are useful. And then finally create something from those ideas. So, and this arrow here shows the primary skills and then the advanced skills. That's the traditional Bloom's. And the last three are what is considered higher order thinking, in other words, critical thinking skills. So we're looking at this and we're saying, okay, yeah, that's how we've always defined critical thinking. But wait, here comes AI. So now students are creating first, okay? And they're moving up the ladder to remember. Now, this is a complete toppling of everything we've been taught about learning, and we have to then start to think about how can we come at our students in a different way. If they're creating first, what do we do now? So that has been the existential crisis of most of education today. This is where the fear is coming, where the trepidation is coming, where the if only we could stop it and everybody must be cheating is coming from. But wait, let's think about how we now can use this to really teach our students the things they need to learn. If they're creating first, then let's flip the model and figure out how to teach them, okay? So if you create first, and this is my inverted, it's called inverted Bloom's taxonomy. So it's an idea I came up with. But what you're doing is first you're brainstorming the topics, outlining projects or draft. You're letting them create first with AI. So let them create an essay with AI. Let them create a picture with AI. Let them create a computer program with AI, okay? Just start with that. Now say to the students, okay, now we're going to act as a critic. Is this good or not? What is good? How do we evaluate that? How do we understand what good is? Then we start to analyze it. What are the patterns? How can we break down things that are in that created piece? Then we're going to start applying what we know. We're going to simulate scenarios. We're going to practice things, provide step-by-step troubleshooting, translate this into new modes. Then we're going to have them explain it back to us, have them teach us what they're doing and why they did it. And then finally, we're getting to the point where they are going to remember what this means and be able to apply it to a further lesson. So as you can see, the arrow in the inverted Bloom's works from AI reliance to student agency. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the students to have agency in their work. So if they're creating, that's lower agency. And if they get up to remember, that's the highest point of human agency, because of course AI cannot remember for us. So the lower levels of this are AI use, and the higher levels are higher order agency instead of higher order thinking, which of course it's making them think at these levels, but they're having more agency in their work. So how does this work in practice? So first of all, we have Create. The students are heavily utilizing Gen AI tools. An example is that the student, and my infographic has a couple of flubbed words here, so please ignore it. I did it with AI. It was supposed to be perfect, but of course, we know that AI is not perfect, but that's part of this lesson, right? So we do the example. the student prompts. Can AI create an outline of a research paper on the American Constitution or the American Revolution? It reads it. We have a pedagogical focus. The use of AI to produce the draft serves as a scaffolded output based on instructions that may be broken down into steps. Then we're going to have them evaluate it. There's a cognitive process here. The students are going to compare their draft and they're going to remix it. They're going to use it. So one of the examples is to upload the assignment rubric into AI and then get AI to give them an evaluation. How good is this? You know, and how could it be better? Then have those kind of conversations with the students. Then we're going to analyze how to make it better. What are the steps to do that? Then we apply it, okay? So after we look at the Gen AI feedback, we're going to apply this and make the changes to the work in the way that we have learned through analysis and evaluation. And then finally, understanding. They're going to be presenting their paper, talking about what that means. And then, of course, remembering this thing, metacognitive reflection is very important in this process. They need to understand what they know. And that's one of the hardest things to do when you're working with AI, is to understand what you know. Okay, so how are we going to redesign learning? We're going to start, and this is how my colleague and I started. So a couple years back in the summer of 2023, one of my colleagues called me up and she said to me, let's make some classes that are focused entirely on AI. And I was looking into AI. I was really interested and involved in it. And you have to remember that the first ChatGPT model dropped on November 30th, 2022. So we're talking just 6 months after that point. And my colleague, Eugenia Novokshunova, and I are starting to build classes entirely with AI. They're AI focused. So we started with our Composition 1 class, which is Introduction to Writing. And then the next class, which is English 1102, we actually built over the winter break, which was insane. We did it in like 10 days. I don't know how we did it. I still marvel at it. But we created these classes. So in fall 2023, I was teaching all my classes entirely with AI, fully integrated into every lesson, in every class, in every week of my course. So what does that mean? We needed to start with what would an employer want from our students? That's where we focus this, because we thought about the fact that the employers are not going to be running their employees' work through an AI detector or demanding that they don't use AI. The employer wants efficiency. The employer wants accuracy. So what is the thing that they're going to want from our students 5 years from now is what we said to ourselves. So of course we started with factual accuracy and liability awareness. So they need to ensure that the information is correct. They need to understand potential legal risks in having false information. So the students need, excuse me just one second. I got a frog in my throat for some reason. So the students need to understand that everything has to be factual. So who is responsible for the information that they turn into me? They are. And I make that really clear. That's not the fault of AI, it's them. If they gave it to me, it means that I expect that it has been vetted. And I want that information to be factual. Number 2, transparency and ethics. They need to be open about the process and they need to maintain high moral standards, okay? So if they're using AI, they need to tell me they're using AI. They need to tell me where they're using AI. They need to tell me why they're using AI, especially that last one, why? Because if they could do it without AI, they should be. But if they can't, they need AI. So in order to be efficient, for example, AI is very, very helpful. Also, if you're working in English as a second language or any second language process, okay, AI is super, super helpful. I have students who are ESL, they're English as a second language. When those students come into my classroom, I know two things about them. Number one, they didn't grow up speaking English, okay? So they're never going to have the fluency that I have. Number two, that they're brilliant, okay? If they are sitting in a college class and they're taking that college class in a language that they have not spoken all their lives, they are brilliant, okay? They're smarter than I am. I want to unlock that brilliance. I want to make sure that that brilliant student can share with me their thoughts, their philosophies, their knowledge, their experience. And so AI is going to help me unlock that capability in my students, but I want to know how they used it in order to understand what they're doing. The third thing is that they absolutely have to have human voice, tone, and personal branding. So that's how I explain it to my students. Look, we're living in this social media world, so I can't just say voice because they don't really understand what that means. But I say to them, you have to have a personal brand. There has to be no question about who is saying this and why you're saying it. I should hear your voice in everything I read. And if I don't hear your voice, then that means that you've lost your personal brand and you've also lost your capability of being successful and being somebody who's important to an employer. You have to have that voice. You have to sound human. If you sound like AI, nobody's going to want to listen to it. Nobody's going to want to read it. Nobody's going to want to do it, okay? So you got to sound human, all right? And that's hard for my students. Why is it hard? We'll get into that. So also, they have to be able to understand really complex instructions because employers are going to expect the next level in our students. They're going to be giving them directions and instructions and expecting the students follow them. So I have complex instructions in my courses and I expect my students to follow them. That is a task for this generation. And the last thing is I expect them to be efficient and fluent. They need to work quickly and smoothly, and they need to do that without sacrificing any quality. So here's the principle one, factual accuracy and liability. So in my syllabus statement, this is how I translate it into my class. Any assignment that contains clearly false information automatically receives a 0. If there's anything false, if they've given me a false citation, they've given me a false fact, they may have hallucinated stuff about the entire assignment. I use a lot of, because I teach English, I use a lot of short stories that are not well known. And AI doesn't really know them. So if my students are just trying to get a summary from AI and they haven't actually read the story, sometimes I'll get some crazy stuff that they think the story's about. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. You did not check your facts. Now, I'm not angry that they used AI. That's not what I'm angry about. I'm angry that they didn't vet what they gave me. They need to be fact checking it. If the student, however, included a transparency statement, if they told me they used AI, then I will allow them to redo the assignment. If they did not give me a transparency statement or they lied and told me they didn't use AI, then I'm going to just leave that 0. So it's a little bit of a carrot and stick because I want them to be transparent. They don't want to be transparent because they don't trust me. So that's how I'm going to build trust in my classroom. And so if they're going to give me that transparency statement, I will allow them to make it up if they make a mistake. We'll just have a conversation about what kind of mistake they made and how they should not make that mistake again. And then they can redo it. So it's a little bit of, kindness, but also sternness. So principle 2 is transparency and ethics. The students must learn to transparently share the AI use. And this has to do with the first point. So what AI was used, how AI was used, and why AI was used. This is super, super important. They need to be really self-understanding about why they used it. What exactly is the reason you needed to use AI for this assignment? This gets into the issue of cheating. So what exactly is cheating in the age of AI? And this is super important. So before it was plagiarism or, mostly plagiarism. So we were worrying about plagiarism or just, writing a crib sheet in your hand, about the answers to the test or whatever. They were kind of the same stuff that we've seen for thousands of years. They've found actual cheat sheets for quizzes and tests in, Greek archaeological sites. The kids were cheating back then. We're not going to change cheating, okay? But we have to understand what cheating is in this age. And we have to also let our students know what cheating is because they're confused. They don't really know. So this is what we did. I had a long conversation with my colleague. So what are we trying to get our students to do? We're trying to get them to think. But what do we mean by thinking? We mean that there has to be productive friction. They have to struggle a bit, okay? That's how you get your students to think about stuff. And being educated is understanding how to struggle and to find the answer to a problem. If our students are taking a shortcut, they're avoiding productive friction. So we made that into our definition of cheating in the age of AI. Cheating is the use of AI to avoid productive friction. However, critical thinking is using productive friction, and they can use AI to increase or maintain that productive friction. For example, if they use AI in creating an outline, or they use AI in order to understand something more deeply, if they use AI to identify different types of research materials that they might look through, or they use it to summarize those research materials to understand them more effectively. None of that is cheating. But if they use it to write the paper for them, that is, because they're using it to avoid productive friction. And look, we are hardwired not to do work. We don't like to do it. We like to be lazy. And so we really have to push our students to accept this productive friction and understand that it's important to their educational development. Number 3 is human voice and tone. So we're going to encourage students to have a personal brand of their own voice and tone, but it's really hard to teach voice. It's really hard to teach this concept. It has been something that writing instructors have been struggling with forever. And so a couple of the things that I've done that have helped my students to understand this is I have them read what they wrote out loud. If they can pronounce, so these are the things. Can they pronounce all the words? Okay. Do those phrases work in their mouths? And do they have the appropriate level of sophistication to be writing what they're writing? If it's not matching the sophistication level of the person, then you know that is not their voice. So I had this conversation actually with a student yesterday. He was setting up his paper. He's writing a rough draft of his paper, and he's getting ready to put everything into it. And I asked him, read me your analysis of the quote that you just put into your paper. So he read the analysis of the quote, but it was very hard for him to get through. And I said, you didn't write that. And he said, what do you mean I didn't write it? And I said, look, I'm not upset that AI wrote that. What I'm upset about is that you don't understand what AI wrote. You don't have any idea what it's really saying there. Because if you did, you would have been able to pronounce everything and it would have been fluently coming out of you because you would have understood it. You wouldn't have had to read it so carefully and stumble upon it. I said, do those words work in your mouth? Are they the words that you would use? And he said, no. And I said, exactly. So it isn't that you used AI, it's that you used AI and you didn't go back and make it your own. So that's what I want to do. I want to teach students how to use AI appropriately and effectively. Principle 4 is adherence to complex instructions. So I want them to have specific, this is how I do my assignments, okay? I use specific detailed instructions. My assignment instructions are very, very specific, especially about formatting. And they have to have a high level of detail. My students are expected to read the directions and to follow them, okay? They need to understand them and follow them. Most of the questions I get from my students is about my directions. I've had to be really good about making directions. My technical writing capability has gotten a lot better in the last 2 years. Okay, so they have to be purpose-driven and fair. The instructions should serve the assignment. They should not have any gotcha or trick elements. I'm not saying that we're going to stick in sneaky things to mess up our students. What I'm saying is that they have to be complex, but they're focusing on the assignment. How exactly do you want that assignment given to you? How exactly do you want the students to do that work? And then I have really clear and transparent rubrics for every single assignment. My students know exactly how they're going to be graded, and they have a clear idea about what my criteria and expectations are, because I want to be safe. Because look, I'm building trust. I have to have trust in my classroom. They have to trust me, and then I have to, in turn, trust them. One of the things that I do a lot of, and it's not directly into my presentation here, but it's something that is very, very important for you to do when you're teaching with AI, okay? You have to understand something called shared vulnerability. So I don't know everything about AI. Even if I could, it changes every minute, so I still wouldn't. It's like, it's like Khalil Gibran said that a man can never enter a river twice because he is never the same man and it's never the same river. And this is how I feel about AI. I cannot enter AI twice the same way because I am never the same, because I'm constantly changing my teaching, my understanding of teaching. And AI is never the same. So I have to be really careful about how I do this. So look, I admit this to my students. I say to my students, this is new. AI is brand new. I've been teaching for 30 years, but I've only been teaching with AI for 2 of those 30. So if you know a better way for me to communicate this, if you have a better idea about ways that we can do this, I want to hear them. I want you to know that I don't know everything and that you don't know everything, and that we should share our information so that both of us are better. And that also builds a lot of the trust in my classroom that allows me to teach with AI effectively. I'm not always going to be right. And I let my students know that. And I have to break that down because too many students think that we're perfect and we're not. And we can't raise to perfection, especially during this time when we're really fighting just to keep our head above water. So that shared vulnerability really helps. Okay, principle 5, this is the adherence to complex instructions. And this is how I'm doing my assignment sheets differently in the age of AI, okay? So students must be capable of understanding how to use AI for a variety of tasks. They have to understand this efficiency, and they have to choose, oh, this shouldn't say adherence to complex instructions. There we go. That's why I was so mixed up. I was like, what? No, this is principle 5, which should not be adherence to complex instructions. It should be using it effectively and ethically. So, so they're going to select the correct tool. They're going to choose the specific AI application best suited for the task. So this is not easy. There's a lot of tools, and they need to figure out the best one. So my students have to be very fluent in understanding different AI tools, and I give them a big instruction for that at the beginning of my class. Then they have to apply those tools ethically and appropriately. I have a big conversation with them about how AI is dangerous, how it can collect information on them that they may not wish to share, how you should never put anything personal into AI, because if you share with your clergy person, okay, or you share with your doctor, you can assume that those people will keep that information private. But if you share with an AI company, heck no, they are going to take that information and use it. So don't share it if you don't want it used. So that is a really big, important thing for my students to understand. So also, they have to use it in context with guidelines. They have to have ethical considerations for the assignment. And they have to optimize for efficiency. They have to streamline the workflow and save time and resources using AI to enhance productivity rather than to complicate it. You don't want AI to make it harder. You aren't using AI just because you want to use AI. You have to have a reason to use AI. So that's one of the things I do with that metacognitive reflection and that transparency statement. Why did you need it? So if you didn't need it, it might be easier to just do it without AI. And getting that decision, understanding what things you should and shouldn't do with AI is also a big, important lesson for our students. So here's my assignments and assessments. So when you're creating with AI, you're going to be trying to AI-proof your assignments, making it hard for AI to generate answers also while, working with AI. So it's it's a little bit of both. So when I'm writing my assignments, I don't try to make them easy for my students to enter it into AI. And look, we were all taught to put everything on the assignment sheet to make it super clear for our students to do, and that they don't have any questions. They can look at the assignment sheet. They know exactly what the assignment is. No. Let's not do that anymore, okay? Because that means also AI knows exactly what to do, okay? So we're going to refer to class content in the assignments, but I'm not going to give them full explanations. So I will direct students to specific concepts within my course material, to the textbooks, to content pages, instead of providing full explanations in the prompt. So I'll say, as you learned in chapter 3, please format this, appropriately. I won't tell them exactly what they learned either, because that will give AI a hint if they're sticking it into AI. If my students want to stick it into AI, they can still do that, but they're going to have to go back and learn those concepts, and they're going to have to figure out how to do that prompt themselves. And that is part of their learning, okay? I'm going to create unique acronyms. So I'm not going to use standard terms. I'm going to develop and use some custom class-specific acronyms for things. Like, for example, there's a thing called a PEAL structure, which means point, evidence, explanation, link. That's how you write an academic paragraph, all right? I changed it to CLEAR. So there's a couple extra steps in there, and AI doesn't know what CLEAR means, okay? So if it says use the CLEAR structure, my students think that because they've only been in my class, they think that that's a universal term, but AI doesn't know what that means. They would have to look through the content to know it. And also I'm going to use, of course, detailed instructions and specific formatting. All right. So I'm also going to emphasize, I keep saying I'm also going to, okay. Emphasize process, not product. We've all been told this, we've all been taught this when we're teaching, that we should focus on process, but we give it a lot of lip service and we don't actually do it. Now we have to actually do it, because AI does something perfect to us as teachers. It exposes everything we haven't done right. So we should have been listening to all those people who were telling us how to teach things, and we ignored them. We said, no, we don't need to do that. Yeah, we do. Now we do. So we have to break down larger assignments. We have to scaffold them, divide major tasks into smaller manageable steps or component parts. Everything has to be scaffolded. Everything has to be formative. We're going to use all those tasks to get to that final goal. And one of the things that I've done is talk about formative assessment, not just for my students, but also for me, because I'm teaching with AI and because I'm new to teaching with AI, as is everyone. That formative assessment allows me to not only see how my students are doing, but also for me to figure out if my assignment worked. So a lot of times I will spend my Sundays before the assignment is released to my student rewriting the assignment for the next week because I got a whole bunch of student things from the last week and some metacognitive reflections, and my students told me things, and I realized that I wasn't teaching them what I wanted them to learn. So I would redo the assignments, change them up a little bit, so that my students were actually learning what I wanted them to learn. And that was a process for me. So I was also gaining a lot from the formative assessment and still gain a lot from the formative assessment in my classes. So I implement frequent low stakes assignment. I give them continuous feedback. This is really hard. It's a lot of grading. I'm not gonna lie about it. It's a lot of hard work, but it really is worthwhile because you get students learning the stuff and you're really having them get some quality information and you're learning about how they're learning. And then I have a flat grading schedule. So they get the same grade, the same percentage of the grade from a quiz or a discussion post as they do from turning in a paper. Why is that? Because the grade and the discussion posts were all part of learning how to do the paper. They were all part of the paper. So by the time they've done all the scaffolded lessons, their paper is already written. So why should I give them extra points for the paper? I'm not going to. Everything's flat. So that's telling them, look, everything is worth the same amount. You have to pay attention to the process, not just the product. All right. So I also redid the rubrics. So I have on my rubrics, instead of the standard stuff, I have transparency. I have whether they critically engaged with the material, whether they preserved their voice, whether they had an understanding of ethics, and whether AI was used to enhance and not replace what they did in my class. So these are significantly different rubrics than I used to have, which were, for example, based on mechanics. Look, mechanics like grammar, spelling, punctuation, stuff like that. AI can do it better than even I can. So why shouldn't my students hand over those mechanics to the machine? Then what is left is human. And I can start to look at what is the human element of this assignment. So that's what I had to say. I'm looking forward to your questions, your comments, and I hope that you learned a lot from this.
Thank you so much, Michelle. We do appreciate this interesting, very interesting presentation. It's I can't call that raising question more than giving a direct answer, which is the very excellent and straightforward with the very clear vision for the topic. So I do appreciate that, and for sure we receive and we still encourage our attendees to send questions. And let me, as we said, that cut to the chase and start with the question from engineering Hussam Nabil. He said that how could we implement this on the technical on technical subjects like accounting, for example?
Okay, so that's a really good question. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we have started using is inaction and after action metacognitive reflection. So what does inaction mean? It means that I ask my students for every paper they do, and you could use this in accounting, in chemistry, in calculus, everything. I want them to footnote what they did and that was specific, that they found was important. And then I want them to tell me why they did it. What was their process of doing it? Okay. So for example, let's say you're teaching accounting. Okay. And the students implement a particular formula to figure out a problem. Then they would footnote that formula. And then at the bottom, they would have a footnote that said, I used this formula for this reason. I found it to be effective because of this, and I didn't use these other formulas because of that, okay? So they're going to explain what their thinking is when they're working through this. Now, what that does is, first of all, it makes sure that you're checking on your students' understanding, okay? Because if they're misunderstanding something, now you know why. And then you can be a better teacher. The second reason is because they can't really do those footnotes with AI. AI doesn't footnote.
Yeah.
And so it really helps out a lot.
Perfect. I think it's a clear answer about this one. There is another question from Mr. Talal Simari, and he said that would you please give some examples from your applications of productive friction?
Yes.
In your teaching to deepen students' learning with AI. I think you already touched some of them. Let's give more.
Okay. So let me share my screen again. Okay. And I'm going to get out of this. Okay. There we go. I got to move this down a little bit. Okay. So this is, for example, this is an assignment that we do in week 4. So it's coming up next week. All right. So let me just actually start with this. This is how I've scaffolded it out the first 5 weeks of my English 1102, my Composition 2 class. Okay. So the first week, what I have them doing is they have to build basic skills in AI, and they have to share their interests. Now, the students don't know this, but I'm going to use this. I'll make this bigger. I'm going to use this actually for them to create their research project for the semester. They don't know it though. So they're going to share their interests, their personal interests, things that they do in their lives. Now I'm going to take those interests and I'm going to have them refine them into a research question. And then they're going to narrow that research topic. They're going to learn how to do MLA formatting, and then they're going to put together a research proposal that I have to approve. Okay? So then the third week, they're going to be preparing their research materials, AI for research, annotated bibliographies. They're doing a literature map so that they can tell me how they're going to put all this stuff into their paper. Then they're going to write their draft with AI-assisted revision, personal voice, and they're making a first draft. Finally, in the 5th week, they're going to create a final draft of their composition, and they're going to be adding metacognitive reflection. They're going to be giving me transparency statements. They're going to be doing that metacognitive inaction, those footnotes. And they're going to recompose this now into a website so it's public facing. So they better have their facts vetted because they're going to be sharing it. So that holds them a little bit responsible. So then what happens is, here's my week 4 essay. This is their, during the time that they're creating their draft. And everything is dependent upon everything else. For example, I stop my students who haven't turned in their first discussion post and haven't told me what their interests are. I don't let them go to the next week because they haven't told me their interests, so they can't build their research topic. If I tell them their research topic is based on their interests, well, they'll go in and change their interests. I don't want them to do that. I want something interesting and fascinating. I want research topics that are not taken from the internet. I want ones that are coming from my students. So I force them to do that. They can't even see the next week till they get that assignment done, which they hate. But I push them and I make them do that. Then in week 3, I don't let them go forward with their research project unless they've completed their research proposal and I've approved it. So they have to, I force them to do that. So we're here in week 4. So here's my assignment. Let me show you some of the things that are in here. First of all, the way that I've done my assignment follows those principles of not sharing everything. So I have, for this assignment, you'll write 1 supporting paragraph of essay 1. You will then use to strengthen your paragraph development. The goal of this assignment is to ensure that you use AI ethically and responsibly to assist you. So they have to write a paragraph, okay? Now, they're going to take this paragraph. It has to be in clear style, which I told you I made up, okay? So AI has no idea what this is, and I'm referring to things that we've done previously. Then I have them, we use Boodlebox, which is a FERPA or you use GD something at the European Union, right, for student requirements for privacy. So we have what's called FERPA, which is the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act. So Boodlebox is something that they can use AI and it'll protect their privacy. So we use Boodlebox. And they're going to copy this prompt. Now, a lot of people use AI bots. They have their students use bots in the class that have the prompts already figured out for them. The students just go into the bot and they go through the process of whatever assignment it is. But I make my students look at the prompts because I want them to know what is there, and I want them to also know if AI is complying with the prompt. And that's super important to me. So I said the prompt below is supposed to give you, and this is the first time they're using a prompt in AI for my class. So I want to make sure that they know this information. That's why it's in red. The prompt below is supposed to give you recommendations on how to revise your paragraph step by step. If it doesn't work as designed or writes for you or gives you unclear recommendations, put it back on track in your conversation. So this is one of the most important things that I teach in my class, which is how to have agency in that conversation with AI. I want them to push back. I want them to tell the AI when it's wrong. I want them to tell the AI when it's not doing what they want it to do. I want them to be really, really pushy. And I tell them, you are not going to be AI's servant. It is your servant, okay? You wouldn't let a servant tell you what to do. So you tell AI. Yes, you tell him. He works for you, okay? So this is how I want you to approach AI. So this is a really long prompt, but it's a really important one. I'm telling it says, I'm working on a supported paragraph for a research paper. I need help improving and supporting paragraph step by step. So what this prompt does is it Socratically asks students questions. They put their paragraph in. I told them to write a paragraph. Then it's going to check them on all these things: the clarity and strength of their topic sentence, the relevance of the evidence, the integration of quotes using signal phrases, the depth of their analysis. And if they haven't done these things, the prompt tells it to do it up to 3 times for them to keep trying to get it better. And they have to keep entering their information. And because this is Socratic, the AI will not do this. It will not do it for them. It only asks them questions. It says, oh, okay, well, I don't see that your topic sentence is very clear. Could you clarify it for me? Perhaps you could make it more obvious. So here's an example of what that looks like. Hopefully it works right now. Okay, good. It's opening. Okay. So here's the prompt. Okay. This is the student's paragraph. The military hierarchy system often clashes with experience and effective leadership. General Martin Dempsey states that the distinction between rank lies in our level of responsibility. So this is a student in the military. Okay. So It says, let's start with evaluating the clarity and strength of the topic sentence. Your topic sentence introduces the idea of military hierarchy with effective leadership, which is a solid idea. However, it could be more specific in establishing the tension between rank and leadership. The phrase often clashes is broad and could benefit from specifying how or why. So then the student has to think about this. Then they enter that sentence again in a new way. And then the Socratic AI talks about this revision. Okay, let's move to integration of evidence. So he's got his evidence here, and it's going to talk him through this whole thing. Is the evidence clear? Do you have clear signal phrases? Is everything here? Then when he's done, look, the paragraph is completely different. This is what he started with, and this is what he ends with, and he has done all the writing.
You grab him to dig in deep with the AI, not just to get an answer.
Exactly. So he's learning to use it as a tutor to push him and to push him hard. And if the AI doesn't do what he wants, then he better be pushing back against it. And I actually give my students higher grades if they've pushed against the AI, if they've asked it to go further, if they've asked it to go stronger, because this is what I want from my students. And as the weeks move on, they're expected to push that AI harder and harder. Don't just accept what it gave you. Push it. And so these are some really important skills, and they are critical thinking skills. My students have to think about this, and they really have to figure out how to ask questions and what questions to ask. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, perfect. And please, we need for the coming question just to have a telegraphic answer, because we have a flow of answer, which is good. Again, Mr. Engineer Hussam Nabi just complete his question with another one. Who is responsible for teaching and raising the skills of faculty staff in order to be able to implement this in methodology? And how about the AI usage for course material preparation for the teacher? So it's a two-in-one question. So in a quick, please.
Okay, so one of the best ways for teachers to start using AI, if you're afraid of it, you're concerned about it, you don't know what to do, is to start using it in your own work. Start building your rubrics with it. Put your assignment into AI and say, could you build me a rubric? I want 3 levels, superior, good, and lacking. Okay, and then the AI will build out a rubric for you. And then you could start to understand how that rubric can work. You can also scaffold your lessons. Let's say you have a big lesson you've just been using as a summative assessment, one big thing at the end of the class. You can stick that into AI and you can say, I want to scaffold this out over 3 weeks. So tell me some lessons I might be able to do that will all lead to this bigger lesson. And then the AI will go through and scaffold those lessons for you. And then you can figure out, does that work for me? How will it work with the time? But when you're planning out your classes and you have to change the way you're teaching, I'm so sorry, but you're going to have to take the stuff that you have been doing all these years and you're going to have to reevaluate it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. I'm really, really sorry. We all have to mourn our old syllabi, but we've got to move forward or the students are just going to roll us.
Yes, I can smell this smell of the, it's all about how smart the instructor just to communicate this to his student and also to manipulate the way that AI just, related to that, it's about the prompt. So do you have tips or guidelines, very high level and a very quick one, for how to develop a very effective, prompt, regardless the specialty?
Okay, so this is the biggest piece of advice I have for you. Go into AI.
The $1 million question, I know that.
Yeah, go into AI and say, I want to do this, but I'm not sure how to prompt. And it'll give you the prompt. It gives you beautiful prompts, excellent prompts. And then you can try the prompt and say, wait, no, it didn't do this. Can you add that? And it'll add it to the prompt. And you can just work back and forth with the AI until you have a beautiful prompt. And then you can share that with your students.
Perfect. Thank you for this very short and to the point answer. That leads us to the creativity. There is a question about that, how to enhance and push the creativity, even that our students use the AI.
Okay, well, this is something I work with all the time with my students. And strangely enough, when we were doing research on how our students were using AI, we found that they kept saying in their research, for example, that they were so much more creative, that this was increasing their creativity. And we were like, what? You know, we don't teach creativity. This is like a research class. But they were talking about how it was so much more creative. And it's because AI releases them from these obligations of learning all of the mechanics of everything. And then they can start to think. It releases the human element in them because they don't have to worry about all those other things. Also, we used a Socratic prompt in my English 1101 class that will actually push my students for show, don't tell. It's showing and telling about, an object. They'll have to describe an object. Then they put that paragraph in. And the Socratic tutoring says, you didn't tell me like what is around the object. What kind of context is it in? What does it smell like? And it'll keep pushing them to be more and more creative. But you can also really use some creative things. I have a friend who's teaching creative writing right now. And so she had her students put their paragraphs into an image generator. Now, did the image generator give them what they thought this would look like? And if it didn't, how can they write it better so that the image generator can get it right? Then that'll also allow the person who's thinking about this to get that right. So it's that whole understanding of how these things work. And you can use AI so creative, like in biology, for example. One of my faculty members had their students have AI create a picture of a plant cell in a discussion post, okay? Then the student uploaded their plant cells. They had to say 3 things that were correct about the plant cell and 2 things that were incorrect. And then the person responding to them had to say 3 more things that were correct and 2 more things that were incorrect. Well, then the students really have to learn about plant cells, don't they?
I can tell. You remind me, by the way, thank you for your answer, but you remind me of the statement that I used to say it when I just hear AI, that our desire to give the artificial intelligence the human intelligence features has led us to create a new intelligence for the human.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, we go back and forth. And one of the things that's really important, though, is that we have to understand that our students are reading AI content constantly through social media. And they don't even realize that it's AI content.
Yeah, it's
and so their voices,
correct. That's true.
So because you write the way you read things that affects the way you write, our students are starting to sound more like AI than AI sounds.
Yes.
And so we have to remind our students, that what you're reading is AI. It's not a human voice. You need to be reading things that are totally written by humans and understand the difference between that and this is the thing, okay? The most important thing that you can think about right now, I'll leave you with this thought. Until ChatGPT 3 came along, every bit of language that you or I uttered or wrote or read was created, handcrafted by a human being. After AI, it's been industrialized. Language is now an industrial product. So how have you been able to take and upscale an industrial product? For example, let's say you get a plastic cup from the store, okay? It's a plain plastic cup. Well, it's very utilitarian, but it doesn't mean anything to you. It doesn't have you don't have memories attached to it. It doesn't have cultural significance. Yeah, you can create some industrial products that look like they do, but they don't speak to your soul. So what can you do with that? We've lost the capability of building our own glassware or our own ceramics, most of us. We are not metalists and creating beautiful metal goblets. We're not doing that, okay? We're buying them. We're buying that industrial product. So how do people then take that industrial product and make it their own? How do they put their personality into it? How do they change it? And that's where we are with AI. And there's 3 ways to do that. Either you can craft something on top of it, okay? or you can become a designer to design industrial products, or you can be the artisan who creates handcrafted things, and then those industrial, the people who upscale and the people who design look at what you're doing. So we've got those three different groups of people, and they're still going to exist in the age of AI, but now it's with language, not just with products.
Yes, thank you so much. And I just ended with this one because we know that we need to respect the time, and even that we have 6 minutes over it. So I would just end it with this comment from Suzanne Saleh. She said that exactly, it's not a question, it's a comment. Thank you, Michelle, for the very useful information and tactics. And I like tactics, by the way. I personally use some of them, but now I can't wait to use new one I learned it from you, and want to share that now with my student, use it in the project for the preferred of AI. So I think this is the impact that the current or the very quick impact of what you said. Thank you so much. And I know that we have a flow of questions, so I do apologize for our attendees, and I leave for Ralph the wrapping up of this one with all my thanks for you, Michelle, and also for you, Ralph. Please.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. Just follow me.
We have many projects, by the way. We have many projects down there in the chat. Many people just need to contact you, so we will send it to you, and for Ralph as well. So to let the snowball get down there. Go ahead, Ralph, please.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much once again, Dr. Michelle, for the very insightful presentation. Again, it is really relevant nowadays. There's a question from one attendee here talking about a foolproof AI detector. It doesn't exist. We sell AI detectors as well. And I can tell you it's not 100% accurate. We have that is why we need to really guide the teachers, guide the students, and try to use AI detectors not in a preventive, like not in a policing way, but as a guide, and to help you basically in the assessments and the evaluations of your student. So with that, again, if you need assistance from Dr. Michelle, I don't know if she can handle all of the questions. I do apologize, Dr. Michelle, in advance. If you receive a lot of questions.
I love it. I love it. I love to help
we will give it to you for the weekend, just to scrolling down with your Nescafe. But by the way, Ralph, you guided us for a very important announcement that for all the attendees and also for others who can't join us, there will be another webinar focusing on what you just said. That there is a specific webinar will be announced soon with you, Ralph, to dig in deep about a practical thing with a tool, exactly a program. So this is open invitation for the people, and once you share with us the outlines and presentations so well and this stuff, so we'll announce it, and we will be happy to have you in the Naseej Academy platform, even Naseej platform. So
excellent.
For sure, this is for the best of both of us and even for the attendees as well. And this flow of hearts and thumb up and everything will be an evidence for that we achieve a joint success for all of us. Thank you. And
thank you, everyone.
Do you need to add anything, Ralph?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
For sure, I will leave the last minute and last comments from our honored speaker, Michelle. So please wrap it up with your lovely words.
Well, I really appreciate everyone having an interest in this topic. We need to be moving forward with AI and not against it. And I really appreciate you opening your mind and your heart to me. And have a beautiful, beautiful evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody. And we see you again in another round of Naseej Academy webinar. Thank you. Have a nice day,
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.